This Sunday, in a sense, punctuates the usual listing of ordinary Sundays after Pentecost to celebrate All Saints' Day, a special day of solemnity in which, as Catholic Christians, we recall the marvelous holiness of the Church that is so manifest in so many different ways and so many different people. The Vatican list of the official canonized saints is only a small number of the saints of the heavenly kingdom. The word saint, early on in early Christianity, was used with reference to anyone who was sanctified in the waters of baptism and who was touched by the redeeming blood of Jesus Christ. Sometimes we've lost that sense of holiness and sanctity that is part of the individual Christian's life. And we almost only emphasize those that were so extraordinary and heroic in their Christian living that they are noted as Saint so-and-so or Saint so-and-so with a special day. There's nothing wrong with that. But we don't want to lose that other sense of holiness and sanctity that is part of our identity as being Christians, sanctified by Christ. The Scriptures have some very beautiful, I think, reflections that make this feast day of All Saints so beautiful and so important. We are living in a moment now, as you well realize, before an election. And there has been so much hullabaloo about everything, groups and peoples, and we see lines of people lined up to vote early, and people are sometimes even apprehensively looking forward to the election day itself. This Feast of All Saints should sort of surround us with something more. I think too many times a lot of people are surrounded with fear. St. Paul in the letter to the Hebrews has some very interesting writing. He compares the ancient world where Moses went to Mount Sinai to worship God with the Christian understanding of this God. Moses, as it says, approached that which could be touched, not be touched, and a blazing fire and gloomy darkness and storm and a trumpet blast and a voice speaking words that those who heard begged that no message be further addressed to them. And then he says, but you approach the Mount Zion of the living God, us Christians, the heavenly Jerusalem, and countless hosts of angels in festal gathering, and the assembly of the firstborn enrolled in heaven, and God, the judge of all, and the spirits of the just made perfect, and Jesus, the mediator of the new covenant, and the sprinkled blood that speaks more eloquently than that of Abel. We are not approaching anything fearful. This holy solemnity of All Saints reminds us that as believers in Jesus Christ, and especially in the Eucharistic moment when we are gathered in our churches in prayer, we are in a vast assembly that is surrounding us. In the letter to the Hebrews, St. Paul also says something very beautifully. He says, therefore, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, let us rid ourselves of every burden and sin that clings to us, and persevere in running the race that lies before us, while keeping our eyes fixed on Jesus, the leader and perfecter of faith. Keeping our eyes fixed on Jesus. There is a race, yes. There is an election race going on for president and other offices. But the real race is that race of our Christian life, that we are living this moment. And it is one that's called to be holy, to be sanctified, to realize that we have an identity as saints, saints of God. We are part of saints. St. Paul addresses again and again the holy ones, the saints sometimes it's translated, sometimes it's translated the holy ones in his letters. He's not talking about the heavenly beings. He's talking about us earthlings. so that we might realize that the call of Christ was something to change and transform, and that we are now not surrounded by just fears and worries and mobs and fearsome armies of enemy nations, but we are surrounded by the saints, as he so beautifully described in the comparison between Mount Sinai. There was a fearsome experience that Moses had and the people of Israel, almost fear and trembling, worried to look up, even to hear the voice of God. We, with humility, yes, with realization of our weakness, yes, but we are looking up and know that we are surrounded by a cloud of witnesses that are encouraging us in the race of our life. We are, in a sense, approaching the city of the living God, a city that is a heavenly Jerusalem, countless angels in festal gathering, and the assembly of the firstborn enrolled in heaven, and God the judge of all, and the spirits of the just made perfect, and Jesus, the mediator of a new covenant. God bless you and keep you. Be strengthened. Be found filled with grace. Do not let fear touch your heart. We are on our way in a race that we can win with Jesus at our side.